like when I was a kid, I was asking questions about hell and the devil and why everything. I mean, now I put like terms on it, like, oh, it was almost like fatalism, like it was all predestined to be this horrible end for everyone. And you ask these questions, you don't have answers with them until you study philosophy, you study critical thinking, you study more robust biblical interpretations other than your tiny little box that I grew up in. And then you realize, like, oh, like these arguments that are put forth are much better than the ones I was given. So I guess I confirmed Universalism in my late 20s, which was 10 years ago, when you discover arguments from like Thomas Talbot, Robin Perry, and then patristics like Origen and Clement of Alexandria and Gregory of Nyssa. But you don't hear these names when you grow up in the evangelical church. You have to discover them for yourself. It's almost like you run into them randomly, or it's serendipity, and the universe conspires to show you these arguments that put forth that you're like. I mean, it comes down to this: if God wants to save everyone and can, then God will. So some Christians say God doesn't want to save everyone. Well, God's a monster then. Like God's, or God doesn't have the power to save everyone, then God's impotent in some way. So I just put the two and two together, right? We're very binary people, right? We're very dualistic. And so if there's an in-group, there must be an out-group. If there's up, there's down. If there's left, there's right. If there's fat, there's skinny. If there's tall, there's short. And we come to like the big questions of life, and we say, well, if there's heaven, there must be hell. And if heaven's eternal, there must be an eternal hell. And I don't know why that's necessarily the case. But I mean, it's almost like our default programming. So we approach scriptures, we see passages of hell or Gehenna, or we see punishment, and we must think that punishment lasts forever, that hell must last forever. Because if it doesn't last forever, and you'll hear this argument, if that doesn't last forever, heaven or life doesn't last forever. And you'll see this in is it Matthew 25 with the sheep and the goats? Like I would say like that's not about the afterlife necessarily. That's not about like heaven and hell. And I'll say, well, I mean, the punishment when you get to like Greek and all this stuff, the Ianios Colossus. Well, if that just means age enduring, well, the life that you're given is age enduring, and it ends too. So, and it's like, well, that's just default programming of this and that, dark and light, up and down, and I think that's our impulse. And I also think the second point would be that we have in-groups and out-groups. We're very tribalistic. And we think that, it's the first question I often hear about universalism, and why I addressed it first in my book is, if all are saved, why even follow Jesus? We have to think there's some sort of reward system in order to follow Jesus. And it's almost as if like Jesus doesn't stand on his own 2 feet. It's not worth it just to follow Jesus for the sake of following Jesus. There must be jewels in our crown. There must be an afterlife of bliss rather than an afterlife of horror. And if everyone's saved, then we've wasted our time with Jesus. And I'm like, no. It's almost like if you knew the truth, why wouldn't you follow it regardless of what the reward system is like? That's the beautiful thing about universalism, is that like it's almost like a gateway just to live. They'll say like universalism will like open the door to sin without any sort of punishment, without any sort of recompense. And what it actually does is opens the door to let you just live your life without fear.